We would go for 1 day.
We didn't see everything though.
Oh, what is? I couldn't do
Oh,
you liked it?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
cold though.
Let's call the meeting to order. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, did you get a copy of this?
I know.
We're here tonight to go over, UDC looked over our proposed changes to the zoning, and generally they were satisfied with them with some minor comments that they made. And we'll just kind of go through the comments that they made. And
We approved the last meeting's minutes, or
oh,
just
that's, yeah, we can do that. So.
just take care of that?
Did everybody get the minutes?
Yeah.
Anybody, any additions or corrections? I'll take a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll move to approve.
Okay, Mike and Warren. All in favor?
Aye.
Jerry, is there a copy of the proposed changes
There is.
that we can at least look over? Thanks.
That's not, this is the copy of the comments.
Of the UDC comments,
Yeah, you don't have,
I don't
they're
have
at the
the-
website, I see. Okay.
The proposed changes should be on the website.
Yeah, I thought maybe there'd be copies. Okay, thanks.
Okay, where do we start here? I guess what is number A?
You know, Jerry, could I ask a question? Just before A, the paragraph says, although certain uses in the river corridor overlay are satisfactorily addressed in section 613, in section 401, other principal uses and development standards such as building height in the RU and the CAL B1 districts, which may be located within the river overlay, are not clearly consistent with land and water use guidelines.
Okay, that's a good place to start.
That's just an intro to what follows.
Yeah,
That's
but
all.
I mean,
Oh, okay, all right. I thought it was something specific.
I did too when I first read it.
we made no adjustment at all to Cal B1, which he's referencing there. So if Cal B1 was in conformance before, it's gotta be in conformance now. The RU, yes, we moved some parcels out of Cal B1 into RU. But our coverall statement that says that those properties have to comply with the
With the river plan.
with the river plan, that would be,
So we're kind
the
of,
other conditions for special uses is number 6 in our zoning changes, basically covers that, and it covers a lot of what he's commenting on here. They just, what he wants is, he wants us to say it over and over again.
well, I see that in some of the other comments, yeah, you know. Say it this way and say it that way.
Yes, and, I don't know.
Which is not their role, by the way.
Which is what?
It's not their proper role. You know, I mean, they have a role to play, and it is appropriate for them to comment and observe and suggest. But to get into nuance of particular languages and to suggest semantics, I mean, that's way beyond. I mean, I helped create that organization, so I know what it was intended to do, and this is not it.
A, amendment reads, natural gas compressor stations not including natural gas processing plants located outside the boundaries of the Upper Delaware Scenic and Recreational River. The UDC appreciates the town's attempt to prevent this incompatible use within the river corridor, and for clarification purposes, we recommend that this amendment read, natural gas compressor stations in quotations, not including natural gas processing plants located outside the boundaries of the Upper Delaware Scenic River Recreational River Zone only, or overlay zone.
Did I should say it again?
Yeah, and, well, going on to the, where's the other one? You know, the natural gas compressor stations have to be located along the pipeline, which exists within the river, within the Calvi 1 and RU districts. I mean, that's where they have to be. So, and we don't have control over that anyway. If there's going to be a compressor station on that pipeline, it's going to be regulated by FERC and not by the town of Delaware. Okay, B.
Well, they're asking you to insert the words overlay zone.
Mm-hmm.
I guess,
I mean, it's already spelled out, but I mean, that just makes it,
Yeah,
it's just saying it again. Right? I mean,
So you think we
I
should?
think
Located
that
outside the
we
boundaries.
shouldn't put
Yeah.
overlay zone again, reinforcing that there is
I
an
think it's,
overlay zone.
let me say it this way, I think it's a stupid request, but why not do it?
doesn't hurt.
So you make that change?
Yeah, because it really doesn't change, as I look at it again, it doesn't really change the language.
I think I would prefer to wait till we finish going through all of the proposals here before we make any changes.
Okay,
First, I'd like to get a consensus on what the intent is and what we've complied with and where they're going with it.
fair enough.
All right, that sounds fair. Okay, B, the amendment reads, remove the asterisk from cell sites and communications antenna sites in all districts in the town of Delaware 2006 zoning law. There is no reference to, in the town of Delaware 2006 zoning law, there is no reference to communication antenna sites. We believe you are referencing commercial antenna sites as it appears in section 401 schedule of district regulations as a special use in the RU district of the current zoning law. To avoid confusion, we recommend adjusting this wording to clarify the town's intent.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I thought it was, did you look at the zoning did anybody?
What they're talking
Go
about,
back.
some of these problems existed before we got into any of this, so, and all they're doing is bringing that particular thing to your attention. It's a minor thing. Let me see if I can find where they're talking about it.
He doesn't reference the section 401.
See, there's a, what he's saying is that the existing zoning law, there's a reference to communications antenna sites, but then there's also commercial antenna sites. In other words, there's a conflict in the language in the existing law prior to us amending it, as I understand the comment. I think that's probably correct. Let me check here. And I think what they're saying is why not correct that at the same time, but let me check. Maybe not. Section 617 of the existing law says regulations for community/reception antenna. Looks to me like that's the limit, that's the place mark, I think that's for the other one, commercial.
Well, in that 617, it does say other commercial antenna and associated facilities, so it does reference commercial antenna. in
That's part of the
617.
community then, so what's the big deal, right? There's a definition, there is a definition in the definitions, it says commercial antenna site. I think actually the more I think about this, the way the existing ordinance is written, I think it's intended that the community include the commercial, all right? In other words, commercial is a subcategory. That's what you're saying, right, Michael?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think so, therefore I don't think any change is appropriate.
Okay.
Because he says there's no reference to communications antenna sites. Actually, there is. There actually is. There's a section titled that. See what I'm saying? 617 that's the title. So I wouldn't do anything in it. It's obvious what's meant there anyway. The more I think about it, forget that one. That's my suggestion.
Okay, the next
We'll
one.
defer the final opinion, right?
Next, this amendment poses changes. This amendment poses changing insurance office, print shops, professional offices, and real estate offices from the special use to the principal permitted use category in the RU district, adding an asterisk and note as follows: must conform with provisions. They want us to add the asterisk. Said, you know, we already covered that in our other. In section 6, other amendments which clearly state that they'll all be have to comply with they got Delaware. You know, it's just saying the same thing, saying the same thing over
It's the
again.
same comment,
Yeah.
actually in a different place.
Yeah. And then he goes on to say land and water use guidelines, schedule of compatible, conditional, and incompatible land uses. Consider business and professional offices to be incompatible uses in the scenic segment of the upper Delaware River corridor, and special uses within regional segments of the river corridor.
We already say that
That they-
limitations of uses
Right.
to those specified in the upper Delaware.
I don't know whether I agree with his statement that they're incompatible uses within the corridor. If they're in the Cal B1 district, they're compatible uses.
Right, that's correct.
Because the purpose of the Cal B1 district was to allow for the community to be able to continue to grow commercial.
Yeah, that's specifically
That's
provided for.
the whole reason for that district. So to limit it, to say it's limited is just not correct.
Yeah, I don't, you're right, I don't, it would be saying like in California, you can't have a, that's within the corridor.
Let's read what he says in
Yeah.
this section.
It says the scenic segment.
So consider relevant values. Let's take a look here. Hold on.
Are there specific scenic zones that are differentiated from other
Yes.
Well,
parts
it's scenic up from Hancock down to where?
I think it's from scenic down to Hancock to Calhoun, and from Calhoun down is
it's
recreation.
What we say is, move those uses, insurance, print shops, professional office, real estate office, from special use to principal use in the RU district, adding an asterisk and note as follows: must conform with provisions of the Upper Delaware Scenic and Recreational River located within this area. And we've already said that that's the whole point.
Right.
That's the whole point. So therefore, they would not be allowed in that area. Outside, in the scenic area, they would not be allowed in the scenic area.
and then they'd be a special use from the bridge
That's
on down?
correct. That's correct. That's correct.
Well, no, I don't think they'd be a special use.
Yeah.
In a
In the recreational.
In a recreational area, they wouldn't, would they?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, the recreational areas from the bridge on down,
If it's in the rural
South.
zone, and it's in the recreational segment, they would be,
In the rural
special
zone, but
use.
not in the Cal B1.
not the Cal B1.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
So the bridge down, I mean, Calhoun's below the bridge.
Right. Oh, I see.
That's Cal B1.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I don't think there's anything wrong with what we've got, that's the bottom line, because we've already said must conform with the asterisk is, must conform with provisions of the Upper Delaware Scenic and Recreational River if located within this area. Period. That's simple. I don't see how we can be any clearer than that.
This is just a statement, a clarification. It's not a request that you change the language.
Well, that's what every single one of
Right,
us.
well, this is, I think most of what he's saying here is.
That may be.
He's
Most
supporting
of
what he said in the
most
first
of what he's
paragraph.
saying here is just recommendations. I don't think,
Yeah.
his opening statement in the letter kind of says that he feels that we're in conformance.
Right. I think that's right.
So,
You're referring to this Travis O'Dell, Jerry?
yes,
The UDC only hired him a couple of months ago.
right.
So, maybe everything we're going over here is kind of within question.
Well,
Maybe he's a little
the
green. Maybe he's a
UDC,
little green at his job yet.
well, they have a committee that met and reviewed this zone. So,
I think,
and, the Park Service is part of that, and they've been pushing for, some of this added language. I think that's directly where.
Well, I was at a couple of UDC meetings and they kind of want to go over everything that the town of Delaware goes over. They want to see all the building permits and everything, but,
Well, anything that's within the corridor,
well, they want everything, is what I was understood.
well, no, they're not getting that.
Well, they want everything, but that's what Harold said,
They have within the corridor, they have,
a right to look at.
overview of any special use permits.
Right, right.
Only special use permits though, not, something that is a principal permitted use within the corridor, they don't have overview.
Yeah.
Okay, H, amendment reads, add the following sentence to RU Calvi 1 and DR district statements of intent. It is further intended that those portions of the district within the Upper Delaware Scenic and Recreational River Management Plan be subject to regulations pertaining to the Upper Delaware Scenic and Recreational River as provided herein, see section 613. We would recommend changing this sentence to read as follows. It is further intended that those portions of the district within the Upper Delaware Scenic and Recreational River Corridor overlay zone be subject to the land and water use guidelines contained within the River Management Plan. And it's the same thing all around.
we've said it a dozen times. How many more times can I say it? Plus, I don't like the wording of this because this sort of leaves, it sort of leaves out the role of the municipal body itself, so. But anyway, we've said essentially the same thing, which is, it's gotta comply with the river management plan, period.
Well, the River Management Plan is what governs. These land and water use guidelines were drawn supposedly from the River Management Plan.
Well, they're part of it, yeah.
They are
Right,
part and parcel of it.
correct. And they were adopted separately, so they were actually separately adopted in the Federal Register.
Okay.
So they have some, in some sense, the plan could be construed as being a plan, which is not a law per se, but the guidelines are actually in the Federal Register, so they do have a little bit more force, I think. But in any case, we've said, land and water use guidelines, we've said it. I don't know how many more times we can say it.
Okay, 9, section 619.1, locations permitted reads, natural gas compressor stations, not including natural gas processing plants, shall be permitted as a special use in the Calvi 1, Callicoon Business District, and the RU District, but shall not be permitted in any other zoning district within the Upper Delaware Scenic and Recreational River. And there, our recommendation is to clarify the designated boundary by including within the Upper Delaware Scenic and Recreational River overlay zone.
Same.
It's the same thing.
Same.
Every single one is.
No, there's-
Everyone's the same.
No, it isn't. In the first one, it's saying, within the Upper Delaware Scenic and Recreational River. Doesn't say anything about the overlay zone. It's just being very crystal clear about.
Yeah,
about
but it's
that.
the same
It's a
thing.
minor modification, but it's, you know.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, it's exactly the same, it's the same one as A.
Simple enough for you to correct it. It's a simple mistake that was made in the language of the first paragraph.
Our recommendations.
Yeah, adding overlays on that, I don't see what would be
Yeah.
the big thing, recreational river overlay zone.
Well, like I said before, if they're gonna locate these things, they're gonna locate them along the pipeline, and the pipeline in some instances is located within the Cal B1 and RU districts, and in some instances within the overlay zone.
But they may take note of it. The whole thing that Ed has been saying is that, you know, if you have something on paper, then they may try to abide by it, and the FERC may say, well, you know, take it, move it a little bit out of the overlay.
There's nothing here that's arguing about policy.
Yeah.
There's nothing in this letter that argues
No,
about
no,
policy.
not about policy, just the language.
It's the language, but
Reinforcement,
we're counting how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. I mean, that's really what we're doing here.
But
I don't mind doing a little bit of it, if that's what you want to do.
I think we
Okay.
should just add the overlays on
Okay.
and then it's complete.
Well, and they're asking you to specify the regulation.
And it goes on, during this process, the town of Delaware 2006 zoning 213 proposed renewable energy amendments and the 2012 zoning map changes were the primary documents received. Attached, please sign a copy of the substantial performance review checklist, which I didn't get. Did you do a checklist along the years?
Oh, you mean the form, yeah, we have them. You're talking about the checklist for.
Yeah, but I mean, this sounds like they went through a checklist and checked it off that we complied, and I didn't see anything like that. Did you?
I didn't,
Oh, so, I thought you meant the checklist for, that we have to submit for projects within the quarter.
No, I have that.
Yeah,
They
that's
gave
right.
us that at that meeting.
Right.
But they didn't go through their checklist and provide us a copy of what they reviewed, you know. Anyway. Is that anyway? So, what's your pleasure, Warren, since you made the suggestion?
Well, I think we've complied with everything that was requested initially.
We comply.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of how conciliatory, and that was a major purpose behind the meeting. Correct?
When we went down there?
When we went down.
Well, you know, it was more than that. I mean, their comments that they wrote that letter to us, you know, that we slapped our hand.
But that was all an error, because they had.
It was all an error, right. They didn't have the proper documents, and,
So this is post-meeting now.
This is after they had,
Comments.
this is a review of
Yeah.
the proper document.
That's
Right,
right.
so
Right.
then,
All right, so you want to make the minor change to A where we agreed to putting in the boundaries of the Upper Delaware Scenic Recreational River Corridor overlay zone. And what do we have on?
D, I think we said was complete, it was like
yeah,
that.
I think they misunderstood that.
Yeah.
I don't, it's just really ridiculous. So forget the E's and that.
E, we already have that.
Yeah, that's right, we already took care of that.
Yeah.
The next one, H.
Which was the
Yeah, we can-
overlay.
Just give me a second.
Well, my question is, these natural gas processing plants, what is your impression of what that is? Do you know?
I don't really know. I don't know. I was thinking about a refinery, but it can't possibly be that. I don't know what else it would even be.
Well,
I thought it was a plant that separates certain properties in the gas, like benzene and some of that.
right, it's,
The impurities.
the other name for it is a cracker plant. Yeah,
What?
they're called cracker plants. The chances of one ever coming to the town of Delaware is probably slim to none, but if one ever did, they take the gas and separate out separate it down into different chemicals that can be used for makings of plastic and things like that. There's a proposal to put one out either in western Pennsylvania, Ohio, or Virginia, or West Virginia right now. And it's being proposed by Dow Chemical and, what was the other one? Royal Dutch Shell. And it's a multi-billion-dollar project. I mean, it's something that is never going to come to the town of Delaware, so I don't even know why we have it in there. The only reason it got put in there was because we pulled it out of a piece of zoning regulation that we copied from some town in Pennsylvania that already had adopted it. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's language, if we took it out, it's never going to happen here. And since you don't know what it is, why try to regulate it? That's my feeling. It shouldn't even be in there, but that's, I've said it before and I saw it, say it again.
Yeah, why?
Oh, so that could also be a definition that changes over time.
Huh?
That could be a definition that changes over
I think in
time.
the original zoning. it
Well, we
was
don't even have a
defined.
definition for it. I mean, if you're going to say that you can't have it, you
No,
should
what
have
it is.
something that describes what the heck it is.
Well, we added the definition.
Yeah, we had a definition, I think, in the original.
What's it say?
We still have it.
Equipment designed, constructed primarily to remove water, water vapor, oil, or natural occurring liquids from natural gas,
Yeah, but that's not
What that is, though.
that's not what that is.
That's not what a processing plant is?
No, that's not what a processing plant is. What they're talking about there is that's contained at every well. What you just described is contained at every well in order to separate out the water and the butane and the, before they put it into the pipeline. That's something that comes along on the well site, and this processing plant is entirely different.
It's said that's how we have it, so we should strike it. If it's not in an accurate description of it and we're describing something else, then why is it in there?
I couldn't agree with you more. That's what I've been trying to say.
Yeah. So
I would take the
move to
description
take
out, and
that
I
out.
just would remove it and
Totally.
not try to regulate it.
Yep.
It's kind of baby in bathwater, isn't it? I mean, why not substitute in an accurate description as opposed to taking out an entire class of activities? Unless I'm misunderstanding
Yeah,
Jerry. I
think you
thought
are.
Jerry was saying to take out the entire idea.
Of a natural process.
Of the
gas
process.
In other words, to not
But why-
include that exception.
It's not an exception.
It's
That's
not an
not how, it's
exception.
not the
It's just a
context. The context
definition.
is
It's
that
the
it's,
wrong definition.
they don't want it. They're
So
saying
why
they don't want a processing plant.
Why should it be in here
Exactly.
at all?
That's what I'm saying.
So
I
we
thought
should
Jerry
take
was
it
saying
out.
take that language out entirely.
Take the processing plant out, take the
I
so-called
thought that's what you were
so-called
saying.
definition out, because
Yeah.
the definition doesn't really describe what it is.
but retain not including natural gas processing plant within
Oh, I
the
see what you're
amendment.
Use the definition.
Right.
If you're gonna retain it, you need a definition.
Yeah, right, yeah,
Yeah.
you got
So
it.
you're
I
saying-
understand,
okay,
I'm
so
just
you're saying, like,
clarifying, are we
making-
talking about taking out
find
the
a proper
definition, or are we talking
definition.
about taking out the activity?
Mhm.
What about making certain, though, that your definition of a natural gas compressor station excludes the possibility of a processing plant?
But that's what it says, A is,
It says that already.
natural gas
In the
compressor
proposed
station, not
changes.
including natural
Yeah, but
gas
in order to
processing.
simplify the language.
But if we have the language of not including a natural gas processing plant, then we should
We need a definition.
have a definition of what we're talking about. or-
We do have a definition.
Yeah, but the definition that we're
Is
saying is
incorrect.
totally incorrect.
Well, can we clarify the definition?
Just
Well,
Can I point
there's
out-
a difference between the separation of
I
the,
see.
of the gas and the water and things that it comes out of the well before it can be put into a pipeline, and these processing plants. Those are two different things. So we actually need two definitions then.
Okay.
Right.
So can maybe we put that into
Yeah.
it, or just take it out? I mean,
I actually think the definition is pretty good of natural gas. I think it's pretty good. The first part is it's like a cracker type facility. And the second, and it says there, but not including things that are designed to remove water, water vapor, oil, and naturally occurring liquids from the natural gas. I think it's pretty good. But whatever.
Which is methane, propane, butane, and
Tell me what your pleasure is.
Your definition of the compressor station includes the phrase natural gas processing plant, so I just noticed that in section 202, you've included one in the other, so you might need to define.
So is the inclusion of compressor stations, is that like a done deal here, or everybody wants a compressor station in this town? I mean,
Well-
is that part of the discussion here?
What we're doing here is just finalizing these changes to the, proposed changes to the zoning, and we will pass this on to the town board. The town board is going to hold a public hearing on this, and it's at that time that you'll be able to.
Oh, so there's no debate tonight about
Well,
compressor stations?
I've been allowing the whole audience to participate in this.
I figured, and I didn't want to let it slide by and get voted on before I
Since it's a
joined in
small
here.
group and it's been relatively civil, you know.
So far,
No, I appreciate that, actually.
Yeah.
It is a small group and it has been civil.
I do have something I'd like to add, but I'll wait till you guys have
Well,
finished
just
with
a
this.
minute, I don't think we're done.
I mean, I think we know what we're talking about with a compressor station, and I think we know what we're talking about in a processing.
Well, this,
Station, I mean-
what I'm saying here is there's two different things. And you're mixing it all into one.
No, we're saying that
You're saying that you're not allowing the processing plant which separates the ethane, butane,
right,
right,
and
that's the.
That's a separate
which
plan.
is,
Right.
that's a
I thought we
separate
talked
And
plant.
I think the intent
I
here,
think it's
I
the
think
way
the
it's supposed to
intent
be.
should be that we don't want that.
That's correct, that's what it is.
That's the intent.
That's what it says.
The compressor stations, that's
But then it goes on
something
to
different.
say, you know, to allow such natural gas, to be of such quality as required to be appropriate for transmission to the distribution to the market. So
That's accepted from that definition. That's what that means. That's accepted from that definition.
what do you mean it's accepted from that?
It's an exception,
It
too.
says, but not including facilities or equipment designed. You see what I mean?
No, I don't. I'm a little-
Oh, I see what your point is now. I see. Okay.
I mean, if your definition
Yeah, I
of
see. I see your
processing
point. I see
plant,
your point. It is a point. I see. I missed that middle line. Okay. Let's see here.
You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Yes, I do.
You have to allow, if you're gonna allow compressor stations, you have to allow the gas to be put into the pipeline to be suitable for a
Okay.
pipeline. But you don't, we're not allowing these cracker plants or big processing chemical plants. That's what the natural gas processing plant is. Okay?
So,
We'll just take out that middle sentence, so, let me read it to you again. A facility designed and constructed to remove materials such as ethane, propane, butane, and other constituents or similar substances from natural gas for commercial purposes, but not including facilities designed to remove water, water vapor, oil, or natural liquor.
Very good,
Okay, I think you're right here, that.
very good, that covers it.
I think that clarifies the confusion.
Right.
The policy is yours to decide, but that's the,
so tonight if we agree with these and they're going to the town board, is it for the next plan?
Yes, if we agree with all of this, we're going to make a recommendation to pass this on to the town board.
For public hearing.
And
Right,
they will set a
public hearing
public
with
hearing.
them.
they did
And that,
public hearing.
all the changes to the zoning map that we did will go along with that.
Okay.
Everybody's zoning who was changed that'll appear in a public notice in the paper when, before the public hearing, so that those people whose zoning has been changed under this,
Seeker would be
well,
handled
the
how?
town of Delaware has to do a seeker. That's correct, right? Yeah.
And they'll do it on this compressor station.
All of this will be, and it's also subject to 239 review by the county. And I'm sure we're going to hear from them.
Terry, do you have a map, a zoning district map? There.
I have one.
Oh, no, I just mean a copy from off the website. You have some pictures. Thank you. You can record.
Yeah, since we've done this, I've done a lot of information has come my way. I've done more research on natural gas compressor stations. I think our statement of what our stipulation of what's necessary and the requirements of it, I don't think really it doesn't address a lot of the issues. I was granted this is late in the game, and I was a lot more ignorant about it at the time we talked about it, but it really doesn't address like low frequency noise or vibration or air pollution or anything in that, and it just seems very.
Well, I think that we did address the noise in our noise ordinance.
The noise, but the noise ordinance doesn't have anything about low frequency noise also, which is, I've read a lot more about it, and it's a serious problem in
my feeling
places.
is, make your
I'm a
comments
fan.
at the public hearing,
Well,
we've been working on this for 2 years. We need to get this passed on. There's people waiting for these zoning changes to take effect so that they can move on some projects.
I think it's a serious, that there is a serious issue to be raised, and I'd like to take the time to do it.
Well, I'll give you a few minutes to speak, but my feeling is, well, go ahead, say what you have to say.
Well, it's about the noise levels. The way the noise levels are listed in the regulations, we're talking about decibel levels above a certain point. But they don't say anything about low frequency noise, which we just mentioned. I downloaded a whole bunch of stuff from the internet, and I'll pass them on to you, but I just want to read some highlights from a couple of these. This one was from Texas, Austin, Texas. This is about authorizing we regulate noise generated by oil and gas operations within the state of Texas, blah, blah, blah. This is outrageously serious, but okay. We have several deaths within Freestone County from brain aneurysms, heart attacks, and internal bleeding, as well as severe body symptoms caused by low-frequency noise generated by natural gas compressor stations.
You get a lot of things off the internet. Just because it's on the internet doesn't make it true.
But
Yeah,
it
that's one of
doesn't
them.
mean that it's not a legitimate concern. This
That's
whole
true.
issue of low-frequency noise is something that's not addressed
You
in
know,
these
I've
amendments.
had several others of these things, but let me put it this way. Since I've got these things, and I've got several more of them that point out that this causes serious damage. Now, it may be the case that the building which we're calling, what did we say it was? Well, let me read what I wrote here. The question, does everything listed in the new regulations constitute every condition required for the placing of a compressor station? If it's the case that sound attenuated, or sound attenuated building is what we talked about, if that eliminates low frequency noise, then the regulations should say that. And if not, then there should be something in the regulations that takes note of the possible health risks from low frequency noise, and specifies that no compressor station should be allowed to go online unless it can be demonstrated that the surrounding area is certain to be free of it. We're talking about, not everybody, but they're saying that people get sick. Now, maybe the building takes care of that, but if that's the case, say so.
It's a 5-mile radius too, by the way. That's like 3/4 of the people in the town are at that risk.
I think it's beyond our scope of expertise to try to regulate that.
I'm not
But-
saying,
have a compressor
but this
station.
is my point, like
If you
why?
can regulate the decibel level, you know, and have a standard here regarding the enclosure and the decibel levels, you know, surely you can find somebody, Mr. Shepstone, I'm sure could find somebody who could look into the issue of low frequency noise and incorporate, you know, some reasonable standards into your amendments here. And that's your job as the planning board to do that before you submit, you know, any of these amendments to the public for a public hearing.
But we're inviting the use. We can say, I mean, who would
Well, we don't
want
know
who would want
we
a
don't-
compressor
we don't
station
know,
next to their house
We don't know.
or their
what-
farm?
That's
Who would want it? Who would want it? Who would buy
If
property?
it was,
Who would want to live there next to it?
my point is, if it exists and it's that detrimental, I'm sure it will be addressed in the state's SGIS.
I think that's naive, with all due respect. I think we
Well,
can
you know,
say you
they
can have a
a lot more
reaction.
expertise
You can
than
have
we
a
do.
reaction to this
try to
as you do to
regulate
the
that.
natural gas processing plant. Say, we just don't want a compressor station in town.
But
Like
I think,
just-
you know, that you're getting ahead of the game, and I think that the issue, if this thing is gonna get put through, you know, as a regulation, then you do have to, you can't put it through without some kind of a reference to this low frequency noise, which is a serious problem.
Yeah,
Can I
I
say
tend to
something?
agree with what you're saying, but how many other issues are gonna come up over the next several months
Right.
that you don't know, and I certainly do not know?
Well, we know this one.
Well, you know
Why don't we
one.
put it in?
You know
So
one.
why not put it in?
Because I think that whatever we do should be as inclusive as possible.
Well, if you
and-
put this
and I-
in, if you leave it out, it's not as inclusive as possible.
That's only one of a myriad of possibilities. Do you agree?
So you can even say that. You can say, here's one of a myriad of possibilities, low frequency noise is a problem.
Roy, you said this low frequency noise is causing death.
It causes serious illness.
Is-
One of
is-
these guys said death.
But, what proof do you have of that? That's just
Well,
something you read, or is
I-
it a doctor
well,
saying this?
I have
or-
these documents. This
Is
is,
it- Are they signed by doctors, or who are they signed by?
well, this one is signed by, this guy gives his name. This one is by a study from the Wisconsin, this is from the Wisconsin Journal. It's a study. This one is about the Shirley Wind Farm in Brown County. Wind farms are also something that will cause low frequency noise. And we're gonna have we're gonna have wind farms in here. We need to do it for that too. This is not just about compressor stations. Hold on. This is a consultant, one of the consultants, Robert Rand of the Rand Acoustics of Brunswick, Maine, reported feeling nausea, headaches, and dizziness after he spent long hours in the test homes.
Okay, you made your point. We'll take it into consideration. Kara, you have something?
We talked about going to see a compressor station.
Yes.
Can we still do that?
They have to do it, right?
And the other thing is that the town set up a gas commission. Shouldn't they be, if we don't have the expertise as a planning board, this is a specific, group of people who are researching that, and we should get recommendations from the gas commission. This is directly related for why the commission was set up in the first place.
Well, the commission, I don't know, was that the function of the commission to?
Well, it was a study,
Gas.
the gas drilling.
Drilling.
They have
About gas development, but they have a daunting, exactly what you just said, they have a daunting responsibility that's overwhelming them, and that is how much of that is crap and how much of it is real. And that's their biggest problem, and they're spending more time. I mean, the truth is, if you want to find something against anything, let's say milkshakes, you can go on the internet, you can find reams of material that are anti-milkshake. I'm not saying that. We don't know.
Sounds like you are.
No, what I'm saying is, the problem is we don't know what it is. That's the problem.
Well, that's right.
And that's why the gas commission, wait, you're not hearing what I'm saying. The gas commission was set up to kind of separate, to find out what's true and what's not. And that's what they're doing. Carrie, you're on the, I mean, it's not a matter of.
My argument is that if you're going to propose a regulation for a compressor station, how can you ignore something? Yes, I grant you, I looked up a bunch of stuff on the internet. There must be 100 other things I did not look at. As far as I could tell, this is a serious problem. I'm not saying don't put a compressor station in. I'm saying if you put one in, how do we know? How do we control? How do we know that we're not causing somebody to get sick? And I don't see how you can put this through, promulgate this thing, without making reference to this potential problem.
All right, I have a suggestion that I think will move this forward. I suggest that we agree to pass this on to the town board, let them hold their public hearing on it. If they get enough comment on these issues, they could just take those issues out of the process and throw them back to us for further review, and take the issues that are fine with them and let them pass on through. You know, that's, like I said, we've been working on this for 2 years, and we need to move some of this forward. You know, it's, so if we just pass this on to the town board, let them hold a public hearing based upon the input they get at the public hearing. If they don't feel that they can go on with all this, they can take certain issues out of this, and we can pass what's left.
And the county's gonna.
And the county's going to have comment on it.
They're gonna have
too.
comments to that.
Right.
I'm
So.
But what is it going to take to have the town board pay attention to this? You're giving it short shrift. There's other, other associated.
We don't have it.
If 500 people at a town board meeting several months ago voiced their concern about resolutions and letters to Governor Cuomo and stuff like that, and those concerns were ignored, and nothing was done to respond or answer to those, complaints by people in the town. What if 500 people come to the public hearing and say, wait a minute, we don't want a compressor station, or we're concerned you don't have stuff about emissions, you don't have stuff about vibrations, you don't have stuff about low frequency noise. How do we know that there's going to be any action, taken to correct this potential problem?
Well, we're only a recommend, our purpose here is only to draw up something to recommend to the town. This is not, nothing here is official, it's a recommendation to the town board, from the planning board, based upon the work that we have done over the last couple of years. It's up to the town board to hold the public hearing and decide what, and your concerns are to be addressed at that public hearing, not here.
So, you,
I mean-
if there are people in the public that would like to recommend to the planning board that you investigate the issue of low-frequency noise, emissions, because potentially in the zoning ordinance, you could regulate what kind of motors a compressor station uses, whether they're electrical, gas, natural gas, maybe restrict diesel because of the emissions, and look into the potential problem of vibrations. What's wrong with you guys taking a little additional time, and get it right, before you submit?
Those things all could be done, and if that's the way the town board feels about it. The town board gave us a mandate to look over this zoning, see where it needed to be changed, and we made the changes we thought were required.
Did the town board specifically request that the planning board look into the compressor station?
Actually, no, they did not.
So where did that come from?
Well, the planning board took that on themselves.
Why can't the planning board take on the
Well,
issue of
We
low
may
frequency
very well
noise?
get into that if that's what the town board desires. But at this point,
Jerry, can I get some clarification on something? Cal B1 is not within the area covered by the river management plan?
it is within the area covered by the river management plan, but Cal B1 was a zone that was set up within the river management plan to allow the community to continue to expand, because that's where the commercial
All the
villages
are.
That's what I thought. Okay, so
commercial.
so my question is, how can compressor stations be allowed within Cal B1 if they're accepted from the
They're not.
management plan? They're not?
They're not saying that,
It
that's what they're
does.
saying.
It's not
It
in,
does say permitted special use in Cal B1.
Well,
Yeah.
Cal B1 covers not only Main Street and Calhoun, it went way up on the hill.
Yeah, I saw that in the
It
middle.
covers a big area.
Yeah, I saw that.
And the reason they did that, and,
So it would be in the
when Ed
Cal
Curtis
B1
did
areas
that
outside
years
the river
ago,
management plan
I was
coverage.
standing in the audience and I was fighting to have them not do that because I didn't want to be in that Cal B1 district.
Right.
And Ed Curtis explained to me, he was the chairman of the planning board many years ago when this river management plan was drawn up. He explained to me that by putting these properties in the Cal B1 district, we were saving them for future development in the town, so that we could grow a little bit. Because if the river management plan, if its goal is to cut off all growth, the town is going to eventually just get to a point and then not be able to do anything.
No, I get that, but my clarification then is, since the river, okay, so there's a slight swath of Cal B1 that's in the area covered by the river management plan, and then there's that extended peninsula area above. So, am I right in thinking that compressor stations would not be allowed in that narrow piece within the river management plan's jurisdiction, but would be permitted in that larger peninsula area as it goes away?
What
I mean,
we're saying
if
is
that's true, then it would need
We're-
clarification in
We
the,
are allowing compressor stations in Cal B1 and RU, in the RU district. How does it read?
right, but there, it wouldn't be permitted, it would be specifically not permitted within the piece that lies within the area covered by the river management
It
plan.
says located outside the boundaries of the.
Yeah.
of the
Right,
Delaware.
okay.
That's correct.
So the other two things I had I wanted was, am I right in thinking that Mr. Shepstone was just delegated to go look at a compressor station and report back to the planning board
Yes.
about his
No.
opinion?
no, he
Okay.
was gonna set it up for
Just
us.
set up
Okay.
For the
And-
planning board
If you
members.
wish.
No, that's what I'm asking for
The
clarification.
planning board would take a road trip to look at a compressor
Okay,
station.
gotcha, okay, and then the last one is,
I think
Jerry,
the town board was also talking about doing this at one time.
And
Matter of fact,
the-
I'm just gonna give you names, you go on your own.
Okay.
And the gas commission wanted to go on a field trip as well, so maybe
Yeah.
we should.
We could get a bus and do the whole thing.
Oh, sign up, sign up. Okay, now the last one was, one of the things that you said was that the reason for not rushing, because obviously 2 years is a lot of hard work, it really is. I've been on things that lasted that long. Fighting gas drilling, I've been on that almost 5 years, actually. But you said that one of the reasons to rush, not rush, but to push the regs through is because there are other activities awaiting them that are pending.
Well,
So I
there's
was
some
just
zoning,
wondering what those would be
there's some,
besides
there's
compressor
some changes
stations
in
and
the
gas.
zoning which are outside of the river corridor that, you know, people are waiting for so that they can use. One is over in Colortown. The Lutheran church there is, well, there's a couple parcels there that are going to be put into a business zone.
But it's
which will
local
allow
folks, it's not
those
the
people
compressed
to
like
do
gas
more with
drilling.
those properties, which is a good thing. I mean, it's, so, you know, to hold this up, no matter when this comes before the town board and this, and the public hearing, it's going to be quite a session. There's no doubt in my mind about it. And if the people at that public hearing can convince the town board that these things need further review, then maybe the town board will take them out and pass on the rest of the things. And so that's my
I'd like to say
recommendation.
the mandate was far more comprehensive, and I'm not minimizing any of the things raised here in terms of health issues, and I agree with that. But the mandate has to be addressed.
Why not,
And
why
let
not
me
put
finish.
everything
Let-
through?
May I finish?
except that?
May I finish?
Yeah.
And I'm saying that, and I'm not in any way minimalizing the problem, but this verbiage is incidental to the larger project that's here, and it needs to be addressed. But it can be addressed when this goes to the town.
Because you're right,
suggesting
there-
Otherwise, this is never
All
gonna
right,
progress.
hold on. I'm gonna cut off this public debate here now. We've had enough of it. It's not a public hearing. I've been very, very accommodating so far. I'm gonna ask for a motion to pass this on as we amended it tonight to the town board for public hearing, seeker review, and whatever.
Prior to that motion, I'd like to make one statement, let everyone else talk, and I just think that this is, going back to Warren's point, this is mixed in with a lot of stuff, and I don't think we should hold it up. But if we're gonna be seeing natural gas compression stations, if it's after the fact, after we recommend, so I just think that we should do everything on here except the natural gas compression, because there's a lot of issues that have come to light.
Well,
in this, so
that's not our decision to make.
It's not our
It
decision.
was your decision to include, it can be your decision to exclude.
It's not our decision.
Why not
Why
just
do we
scratch the
even,
word out?
why do we just throw this away, the whole thing? I'm
All
just
right,
saying, remove that.
okay.
So that's my
Point of
comment.
order, I
Yeah.
made a motion, or I asked for a
Yeah.
motion, does anybody want to make that motion? Does anybody get it? You move,
I'll make a motion.
the same that I,
Yes.
and second? Okay, all in favor of moving that forward?
All right.
Well, we need a, no, I think point of order is then, if you have a second, it requires discussion.
Okay, discussion.
Okay, my discussion is that I think most of this zoning changes are okay, but I think that obviously there's a lot of debate and a lot of things that have been overlooked as far as natural gas compression stations, and I believe we should remove that before we send it to the town board.
Okay.
On the special use permit, is that all laid, I mean, can we
Special use permit for
change,
what?
for a compression, I mean, can we put certain specifications in there? Or is
The object
that
of a special use permit is to allow the planning board to review it
to,
and to put in conditions
Right.
for compliance.
so will we have that opportunity at that point to put in some low frequency? you know, they come, the gas company comes, can we put it in then, you know, this is going to be, or does
Wouldn't
it
there be a
have to?
seeker if a gas
Yeah,
station
Tara,
became?
I think the answer to your question is, assuming that the law got amended, as you guys are.
We would have to
and
make,
it was
we
in
would
there.
have to approve the special use, and if that was the
Right.
case, we could make
Yeah,
any
if there
recommendation.
was a site-specific application for a
Right.
special use permit for a specific compressor station, there would be a seeker review of that. And one of the things that could be brought out in the seeker review is if there is legitimate proof and evidence of this low frequency impact, that could be brought out. It would be analyzed, addressed as part of that. The applicant would have to make some demonstration to address it. If the public comment brought out or brought out evidence to the contrary, you know, you guys could further explore it, and ultimately you could make a decision. Yeah, you've got discretion in when, if and when you grant the special use permit.
Who would be the lead agency on a seeker?
That would depend on the nature of the application and who the
For a
permitting
compressor
authorities are.
station.
Depending on the number of agencies that have approval authority, any one of them could be the lead agency. And if there's more than one agency that has standing to be lead agency, there's a process in the seeker regulations for the lead agency to be determined. It could be the Town of Delaware Planning Board, it might be another agency. The only analogy I can give you right now is in the past we've had situations where both we and the DEC had you know, standing to be lead agency. The DEC's position, and I think our most recent experience was they deferred to us.
Yeah.
They didn't want it.
They didn't want it.
And it could, you know, with this gas thing, it could be FERC too, you know, you never know.
Well, in town of Thompson, they just did a sound study with that speedway. I think the town required the speedway, right, to do the,
Well, we did a sound study when we had the go-karts up at the Villaroma, you know.
before my time.
We had, you know, decibel meters and the whole schmear there, and it was all paid, we required the applicant to pay for that.
They're putting a compressor station in Orange County now, or?
I mean, yeah. And the other one's going up on Humphrey Hill Road,
They're putting one up there.
the one we couldn't have in town Delaware.
The one we couldn't have in town, though.
Anyway, we have a motion, we have a second, and we had some discussion. All in
Good
favor?
job, Jerry, good job.
Carrie, Fraser, I'm,
All in favor?
okay. It's passed unanimously, we're gonna send this out to the town board.
Oh, goody.
Hot potato.
You didn't vote for it, Michael.
No, I didn't.
It wasn't passed.
I did not vote for it, no.
Let the record show that Mike
Yeah.
That's the one,
voted no.
people in
I don't
Texas
even know
that.
why we're going to see compressor station now. It what difference does it make? We've already made a recommendation. I've seen them online.
He'll take a good job.
It's, I do have to say, since we're out of the meeting, if the town is so,
I don't think they did a
if the
motion
town
to
is so
adjourn.
interested in growing itself, having a compressor station in the town is not gonna grow the town. Compressor stations will not bring housing, will not bring other businesses, people won't wanna live next to them, people won't, their property values will go down. It's not a positive use in town, a compressor
They'll never
station.
put one in.
That's pretty much a moot point, because
So-
they're putting one
so-
just over the Sullivan County line, so they're not gonna have to.
So
need
why
one in
even
Delaware.
have that word in the, why even mention it?
You know,
I
I
mean, we're
couldn't agree with you
voluntarily-
more, we could take all this stuff out about natural gas, take it right out of there,
Yeah.
and not regulate it at all in the town, and I would be virtually happy with that.
I am too. Take it out, take every regulation
Because
you've made
most
about
of it-
natural gas and
Most
take
of
it
it
out.
is not gonna come under our
That's right.
our ability to regulate it anyway.
But
Well,
why
then,
make
Jerry,
a,
whose
but
idea
once
was
you
it to
put-
put
Because,
it in?
let me answer it, because
Where did
what
that
happened
come
was,
from?
what happened
You've got a
was,
pipeline running through town, you're gonna.
I
do it.
explained to you, I brought in about a year ago a case, the PSC case, where they made it, it was very clear that they had the authority, they did not surrender any authority over this. However, they would defer to local agencies when they had standards that were reasonable. So I suggested that it would be appropriate that you have some standards that you could refer to when FERC, or not when FERC, when PSC is dealing with that. I suggested, why not put the standards in? Because then you'll have some influence over the decision. This is the same thing is happening here as happening in Coshocton. where an honest attempt to regulate and do this the proper way is turned into something evil that we're trying to permit something. And it's
Yeah,
not,
you-
it's the
but you
exact
didn't
opposite.
create
We're
any
trying to regulate
standards.
something.
But you're stating it as a permitted special use. You
Well,
don't
you're-
you don't have to, I mean, you're already opening, you're cracking open the door.
You're
by
assuming,
permitting
you're
it
assuming
as a
that you
special-
can deny compressor stations. I don't believe that's correct. But
No,
Mr.
but
Shepherd,
you
you
can
did not put
regulate
any
fire-
regulations
You
in
can
there.
regulate
You just
industrial
said,
activity
"Come on
without
in."
specifying.
Do we have setbacks?
You didn't regulate it.
yes.
Motion to adjourn.
You mean you don't have anything else to do?
You don't want to adjourn, everybody wants to stay here?
Hell, I'll make